Hello my sisters! The remaining cards for Dr. Boone's Incredible Inventions, the mini set for Whizbangs Workshop, have been revealed, so let's go over them. We're going to be doing this with the newest cards first and the oldest cards last. So we're going to start with the Warlock cards. Alright, now for Warlock, first card is going to be Domino Effect, a 3-cost spell that deals 2 damage to a minion. Repeat to the left or right. Deal 1 more damage each time. Now this will allow you to basically clear out an entire board, if I'm reading this completely correctly, where every time there is another minion to the right or left, it'll keep on going and going and going. Thus, if your opponent doesn't play around a card like this, then they will actually have a lot of problem. And this means this is probably going to be one of those cards that will see a lot of play. It's better than Mortal Eradication, which is another 3-cost spell that Warlock does have access to. But this is just a overall way better card in my opinion. The next Warlock card is going to be Infernal, a 4-cost 6 attack 6 HP demon. Taunt Battlecry, set your hero's remaining health to 15. For a demon Warlock deck, this actually isn't a bad card for an early game demon that you could easily slam down. However, I will say this is competing with other cards such as the Glowstone Elemental, the 6/8, and it doesn't have any additional synergy with anything else because I don't think this will discount the Imprisoned Horror and other cards that do exist in Warlock right now if you do slam it down. Overall, this one probably won't see too much play. And for the final Warlock card, we have Mass Production, a 1-cost spell that draws 2 cards, deal 3 damage to your hero, shuffle 2 copies of this into your deck. This is perfect for Pain Warlock, which kind of makes me a little bit worried, mainly because of the fact that Pain Warlock is already good. But I will say, this is a card that can also fit in other Warlock decks because it's basically infinite draw power, and it is a little bit of a better version of your own hero power because it only costs 1 mana and only does 1 more damage than your hero power, but draws you 2 cards instead. Sure, you're going to be diluting your deck a little bit with additional copies of this, but if you use this in something like a shuffle Warlock list where you're trying to get as many cards drawn throughout the entire game, this could be good. I am a little bit sad that we didn't see any additional chess pieces, which I would have assumed we would have got for Warlock, since we're only missing 3. But it is what it is. Okay, now for the DK cards. First one is going to be Helm of Humiliation, a 4-cost shadow spell that gives a minion -5/-5, and then gives a minion in your hand +5/+5. So this is another hand buffing card for DK, which is a deck that has been supported by quite a bit in the last few sets. The one downside about this card in particular is the fact that it does require 2 blood runes to run it, but it is a pretty decent removal tool for a blood TK list, though I don't know if you're going to want to run this over a Death Strike, just because Death Strike does add a little bit of additional survivability. Easily see this being buffed up to only be 1 blood rune cost. Now for the next card, which is going to be Toy Snatching Geist, 3-cost 2 attack 1 HP undead, Gigantify Battlecry. Discover an undead, reduce its cost by this minion's attack. Now, with this card in particular, there is actually only 2 minions in the Gigantize version of the card that you won't be able to get out for free, which is Stitch Giant and Rexa, at least in standard rotation right now, both of which already have mana cheat on the card, making this card incredibly strong, especially if you can get any type of hand buffs whatsoever. Overall, again, incredibly strong, actually probably one of the strongest Gigantify cards that we've seen in the entire mini set. And now for the final DK card, which is going to be Foam Render, a 5-cost 5 attack 1 durability weapon that costs 1 unholy rune. Whenever your hero attacks, spend 3 corpses to gain it a durability. Cool that this is basically a toy version of Shadowmourne, which is a legendary item from World of Warcraft. Outside of this, it is actually pretty decent. You could, in theory, just go infinite with it, though DK doesn't really have too many ways to buff up weapons within the hand, so maybe it won't be as strong as I actually originally thought. But given the fact that Unholy tends to generate a bunch of corpses, and you could easily fit this into a existing deck of Rainbow DK without worrying too much, this should be at least semi-playable. For Rogue, the 3 cards that we'll be getting is a Dust Buddy, a 3-cost 3 attack 2 HP beast with a battle cry and death rattle. Add a random piece of junk to your hand, a coin, a rock, banana, or knife. This is one of those cards that would be incredibly strong if it was a 2-mana card, but because it is a 3-mana card, this might not be as playable as you would expect, and it could just end up as a pure dust value. For the next rogue card, we have Twisted Pack, a 1-cost spell that adds 5 random cards from other classes to your hand. At the end of the turn, discard them. So there's 3 classes that have been getting these pack cards. Rogue got Thief, which I'm not shocked about this at all. When they announced that they were going to be doing a mechanic like this, I assumed that either Priest or Rogue were going to be getting Thief support. I could have also seen maybe Mage getting a Rainbow Mage pack instead, but they didn't. Overall, this card is actually probably pretty good. Now for the third card, which is a Dubious Purchase, a 4-cost spell that draws 3 cards, combo, destroy a random enemy minion. Great for control rogue, also great for a Highlander rogue if you really want to try that out. Overall, just really good draw power. Sure, it costs 4, but you have things like Preparation to make it cost 2 and instantly get the random destruction effect, especially if you're playing like a weapon rogue deck where you want to draw through as many cards in your deck as possible and get rid of whatever big taunt your opponent might have that prevents you from finishing them off with one weapon swing. Now for Paladin, the first one is going to be Flickering a Lightbot, a 3-cost, 3-attack, 3 HP mech. Gigantify, costs 1 less for each holy spell you've cast this game. Then the gigantified version of it is a 8/8 with the same abilities, which means you probably will not be playing this for 8 mana. Though we no longer have Holy Mackerel in Standard right now, that means you can't easily trigger the discount on this as you would before. It also is worth mentioning this card for Whizbangs Workshop is incredibly creepy. It looks really out of place for all the other cards in the set. While I do think this card has a lot of potential, I do think it is one of those cards that should have been printed last year when we had Holy Mackerel. And because of which, I don't know how playable it is going to be in the long run. Now for the next card, which is going to be Holy Glow Sticks, a 4-cost holy spell. Lifesteal, deal 4 damage, costs 1 less for each holy spell you've cast this turn. Now, this has the problem of it is a really cool card for like a miracle style of deck, and that's probably where I'm going to try to make it fit. But if we look at the holy spells that do exist in Paladin right now, you probably are going to be spending more mana discounting it than you would just hard casting this normally. The only plus side about this is it does proc off it itself. So the first one is 4, then the second one is 3, and then the next one is 2, and so on and so forth. So if you find ways to duplicate this through things like Fizzle, then this card might be playable. But because right now in Standard there aren't that many ways to duplicate spells, this card probably won't see too much play right away, but it is a decent enough removal tool later on if we see some additional holy spell synergy. Now for the final Paladin card, which is Whack-a-Null, a 1-cost spell that discovers a Paladin weapon from the past. There are a lot of Paladin weapons in Wild, and I will sadly say this, the ones that are in Standard, for the most part, are just way better. Honestly speaking, Paladin, while I do really like the idea of a Holy Paladin working in Hearthstone, because we've never really had a pure Holy Paladin list before, I think this is going to be a mini set where Paladin doesn't change too much. Now for Shaman, the first one is going to be Murloc Grovin, a 1-cost, 1-attack, 1 HP Murloc, Gigantify. Battlecry, summon a tiny fin with rush and stats equal to this minion's. 2 things come to mind with this card. First one is Wish Upon a Star, making this into a 3/5, thus giving you 6/10 worth of stats for 1 mana, which could be cool. But that means you're also not playing the card until turn 7 or 8, which is a little bit too late for a 1-drop. Though the gigantic version of the card might be the reason why you would want to run this, even as a 1/1 that you can slam down on turn 1. This will allow you to easily combo this with Shutterblock, though. This card will become a 32/32 for 8 mana, but because Reno Jackson exists in Standard Hearthstone for 9 mana, that combo is probably not as playable as it sounds at first glance. The only upside is this does allow you to have 2 copies of it because it isn't a legendary, so you might be able to get around a pesky Reno or 2. For the next Shaman card, we have a Rocket Hopper, a 5-cost 10/10 beast with rush, overload 4. Even our memes are getting power crept. It's no longer a 4 mana 7/7. It is now a 5 mana 10/10. Now, will this make this card see any type of play? It could. It could actually see some play. Overall, though, without Light It Burns in standard right now, a 10/10 body is actually pretty good even on turn 5. Not a lot of classes can actually easily deal with this, making it probably usable. Now for the final Shaman card, which is going to be Wave of Nostalgia, because Nostalgia sells a 5-cost nature spell that transforms all minions into random legendaries ones from the past. I think someone did the math, and on average it's going to give you like a 5-cost 6 attack 4 HP minion, which isn't necessarily bad. You could also use this in combination with some of the other evolve support that we do have in standard, such as the excavating package. Overall, though, if your opponent has an empty board and you have a lot of ways to spam out a bunch of really cheap minions really quickly, this might see play, but this can easily backfire and your opponent will be able to use the minions that you give them before you can, for the most part, on average, making this card probably less playable than it looks like. Now we have Warriors cards with the return of a Bomb Warrior to be bomb-tastic in Standard Hearthstone once again. The first card is going to be Safety Expert, a 10-cost 8/8 mech. Rush, a Death Rattle, shuffle 3 bombs into your opponent's deck. And don't worry, it isn't the TNTs that Boom Boss shuffles in, it is the good old cast 1, drawn, take 5 damage bombs. And because of this being one of the only ways to actually shuffle bombs into your deck, you're going to have to find ways to make this card more playable, because right now at 10 mana, it isn't the most playable card. However, given part Scrapper, a 2-cost spell that lose up to 5 armor, your next mech costs that much less. This does not have to be played on the same turn as your mech, which means you can stack 2 copies of this before turn 4 and be able to get a 0 mana 8/8 mech with Rush. I get it, this combo is probably a giant meme, but it should be incredibly funny to try to make a Bomb Warrior deck work, because we also are going to be seeing a neutral card later on that does shuffle bombs into your opponent's deck at the end of the turn. Overall, we do have a lot of Death Rattle synergy for mechs in Standard also, maybe making Mech Warrior a fully functional deck. And for the third Warrior card, we have Standardized Pack, a 1-cost spell that adds 5 random taunt minions to your hand. At the end of the turn, discard them. For the taunt minions that will buff up all the other taunt minions in your hand that you generate off of this is great. But for the most part, taunt minions are actually pretty high cost, so this card probably won't see any play compared to some of the other packs. Now for Demon Hunter, Gibbering Reject is the first card, which is a 4-cost 3-attack 3 HP demon. After your hero attacks, summons another Gibbering Reject. This is great in combination with Going Down Swinging. It gives you a way to flood your board with a bunch of additional minions. However, it is also worth mentioning that is a 8 mana combo when Reno Jackson costs 9, making it probably not as playable as it could be. Overall, though, I think this card was really printed to make Window Shopper a little less consistent on randomly generating Magtheridon and the other big demons that you normally would want to get. Now for the next card, which is going to be Return Policy, a 3-cost spell that discovers a friendly Death Rattle card you've played this game, trigger its Death Rattle. The only thing that I can think of using this card with in combination in Standard right now is the Quill Board that does 3 damage to the lowest HP enemy. However, outside of that, Demon Hunter doesn't really have that much Death Rattle support, making this card have a lot of potential for the future, but right now probably not going to be the most playable card in the world. Then for the third Demon Hunter card, we have Sockpuck Slither Sphere, a 1-cost 1-attack 3 HP Naga. This minion's attack is improved by your heroes. I am really worried about the fact that we just gave Naga Demon Hunter another 1-cost Naga that is actually quite playable. Between these 3 Demon Hunter cards, this is probably the most playable, as it already fits in a very playable deck. Now for Mage, the first card is going to be Dark Moon Magician, a 3-cost 2-attack 4 HP minion with Elusive. After you cast a spell, cast a random one that costs 1 more. So I think right now this almost is a guaranteed Sunset Volley in Mage whenever you cast a 8-mana spell, but in theory you could do a lot of damage to your opponent's face really quickly. Overall, I don't know if this will be worth playing this over a no minion variant, since we did see a few a few buffs to the no minion package. Now for the next card, which is going to be Malfunction, a 2-cost arcane spell, deal 3 damage, split among all enemy minions. If your deck has no minions, deal 3 more. I think this card is probably unplayable. And for the final mage card, we have buy one, get one freeze. A 3-cost frost spell, freeze a minion, summon a frozen copy of it. Now, I will say this. I love the pun on this card, but this is just a worse reverbs. Overall, I do think there are ways that you could maybe use this card, such as targeting a Ragnaros. But if you wanted to target a Titan, the Titan will be frozen for a turn and you can't get any advantage off of that. And Ragnaros is probably your best option. Overall, though, I don't think this one will see too much play. Now for Hunter, first card is going to be a secret that costs 2. Bargain Bin. Secret, after your opponent plays a minion, spell, or weapon, draw a card of the other 2 types. This will force you basically to play all type of cards within a Hunter deck, but it is actually a pretty good draw card for a secret Hunter list, since we do also have the Spellstone that rotated back in. I'm not actually shocked at all that we're getting additional secret support in this mini set for Hunter, just because of the fact that we did have the Spellstone. It was going to probably eventually come no matter what, and this is quite playable just because it is a way to refill your hand in a class that historically doesn't have too much draw power. And speaking of secret support, we have the return of Subject 9, who is now Project 9, a 5-cost 4-attack 4 HP mech beast. Valkyrie recast every friendly secret that triggered this game. Oh boy, are you glad that objection does not exist in standard rotation right now, aren't you? Because this card would be incredibly annoying. There are ways to get infinite copies of this through things like Mysterious Egg, where if this is your only beast within your entire list, you're just going to be able to get more and more copies of it for 0 mana, making this card incredibly strong. Even if you didn't have that synergy, you also do have the Observers as a way to get secrets from Mage, such as Counterspell or even Ice Block, making a control secret Hunter deck very, very possible. I'm actually really excited for this. It's been a while since I've really wanted to play a Hunter deck. And finally, for the final Hunter card, we have Wilderness Pack, a 1-cost spell that adds 5 random beasts to your hand at the end of your turn and discard them. Basically, this is going to be a way for Face Hunter to refill their hand, along with some of the token generating Hunter lists. It's basically a late game card disguised as an early game card, and probably quite playable given that fact in both Standard and Wild. Now for Priest, probably one of the classes I was most excited for in this mini set because I really had hoped for some Res Priest support, and we got one. Delayed Product is a 4-cost spell that discovers and summons a minion that costs 8 or more. It goes dormant for 2 turns. And now these are all the minions that you randomly generate off of a card like this. Overall, you should know that over the past week, I've been trying to make Diamond Spellstone work in a Res Priest list in Standard, and the deck felt like it was missing 1 or 2 really good targets to become really powerful. However, this does add a easy way to get a 8-cost minion out on the board before turn 8, making this probably even better than it was before, even if it isn't the direct support that I really wanted to see. Now for the next card, which is going to be Puppet Theater, a 4-cost location. Due durability, choose an enemy minion and get a 1/1 copy of it that costs 1. Now, this is going to be great in Highlander Priest because this will allow you to easily access your opponent's Bronzebeard. And so you know everyone and their mother is playing Highlander Warrior. Overall, though, even if you're not looking at just Highlander Priest, this actually is a pretty decent card for any other Priest control list because you could easily get access to any key Titans that your opponent might be slamming down for essentially 5 mana, making it a lot cheaper than the original Titan that they used. There's a lot of powerful battle cries that you could easily abuse for 1 mana, and you can also duplicate whatever card that you do copy with good old Pip the Potent. Now for the last Priest card, which is going to be Funhouse Mirror, a 3-cost shadow spell. Summon a copy of an enemy minion. It attacks the original. So this is a 1 minion version of Soul Mirror, which was a card that saw a lot of play back in the day in Control Priest. This will probably also see a lot of play because it is either a removal tool for a big opponent minion or a way to copy a Titan or any other minion that has a lower attack than their HP that you could get full advantage really quickly off of. Okay, now for the neutral cards. The replicator-inator, a 5 cost, 5 attack, 5 HP mech. Miniaturize, Gigantify. After you play a minion with the same stats as this, summon a copy of it. And then it also gives you a 8/8 version for Gigantify and a 1/1 version for Miniaturize. Even with the base version, if you slam this down in combination with Shoplifter Goldbeard, you'll be able to do 20 damage to your opponent's face in a single turn on turn 10, which could just end out the game. But I think this card has a lot of potential to be incredibly broken. There's a lot of weird combinations of cards that will make this card strong enough for some wacky combos. And now it's for the pro gamers out there. A 2 cost to attack 3 HP minion Battlecry. Challenge your opponent to a game of rock, paper, scissors. The winner draws 2 cards. So this is a card that will probably never ever see play in competitive play. However, it is also worth mentioning this is kind of an anti-bot card because not a lot of bots are going to be programmed to be able to do this, and you'll just basically force them to rope themselves, which is actually kind of cool. Overall, though, you might be able to make some weird mill using Shutter Block because you could, in theory, make your opponent draw 6 cards instead of just 2. And while that won't be the most consistent, it is a funny little option that you could, in theory, do in Standard. And the next card is Building Block Golem, a 5 cost, 6 attack, 3 HP minion. Rush, Death Rattle, summon 3 random 1 cost minions. This makes me think of Ben 10. There is an alien in Ben 10 that is basically just a bunch of Legos put together, and this is basically the same exact idea. I think the name is Blocks. Overall, though, I think this is just a pack filler for the mini set. And for the final neutral card, we have Explosionier, a 3 cost to attack 4 HP minion. At the end of your turn, shuffle a bomb into your opponent's deck. When drawn, it explodes for 5 damage. So when we were going over the warrior cards, this was the other one that I was referencing. Between the fact that we have only 2 cards that shuffle bombs directly into your opponent's list, I don't know how playable Bomb Warrior will be in the long run, but I am sure willing to try to make that list work. I am curious, though, if this card in particular would maybe see more play in a different class. It's one of those things that I think has a lot of potential. I just really wish the Highlander cards in Standard worked like the old Highlander cards where shuffling bombs into your opponent's deck would actually matter, but it is what it is. Alright, so those were all the cards revealed for Dr. Boom's Incredible Inventions. Let me know down below what you're most looking forward to playing around with. And I will also leave a link to the previous card review down below for the cards that aren't in this video, just so you can see what my opinion of those ones were too. Overall, this mini set looks like a lot of fun for a lot of the classes. There are a few that I didn't get exactly what I wanted, but you know, I can't really control that now, can I? But overall, if you enjoyed the video, please like, comment, subscribe. Until next time, bye bye.